The clang of pots and the hiss of boiling water echoed through the kitchen like the low murmur of forgotten dreams. Tucked away in the back corner, half lost in the chaos of cooks shouting orders and servers rushing trays, stood a girl most barely noticed. Sleeves rolled to her elbows, head down, hands deep in soap and steam, there she was. Her name was Emily Carter, and she washed dishes. She wasn't on the payroll. She didn't wear a name tag. She didn't clock in or out. She just showed up, 6 days a week, like clockwork. Nobody paid her, and nobody asked questions. After a while, people stopped wondering altogether. She was just there, like the smell of onions or the broken light over the back sink. Emily was 22, but her eyes carried the kind of weight you'd expect to see in someone twice that age. She spoke little, ate even less, and kept to herself like it was a matter of survival. She came in before the rest and left long after they were gone. For nearly 7 months, she was as much a fixture of that place as the grease stains on the tile. And then one evening, everything shifted. It was a quiet Tuesday in early October. The front of house was half full with regulars and the occasional date night couple. No special events. Nothing out of the ordinary, until a man stepped through the side door. He wore a dark charcoal suit, no tie, hands folded over his chest. Not a delivery guy, not a health inspector. His eyes scanned the room, not like he was looking for someone, more like he was studying the place itself. His name was Michael Graves. Nobody recognized him, not in person at least. But Michael was the chief executive officer of the entire Redwood Hospitality Group, which owned that restaurant and 39 others like it across 4 states. He was 52, tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of presence that made you sit up straighter even if you didn't know why. He wasn't supposed to be there. Not that night, not ever. Not in that suit, and certainly not through the kitchen door. A year prior, after nearly 2 decades of boardrooms and filtered emails, Michael had launched a personal initiative. Tired of PR spin and middle manager reports, he decided to visit his restaurants unannounced, undercover, without his entourage or executive badge. No press releases. No warning. Just his own 2 eyes and gut instinct. That location, a mid-range bistro tucked between a gas station and a gym on the edge of a worn-down strip mall in Spokane, Washington, was the 4th on his list. He'd planned to stay 2 days. Observe, take mental notes, talk to the staff casually, and leave without leaving a trace. But something there felt off. Or rather, someone. It was Emily. She moved differently from the rest. Quiet, careful, efficient to the point of obsession. Same apron every day, its fabric thinning at the edges. Same sneakers with a gaping sole held together by duct tape. Same patched-up button-down shirt. And not once did she complain. Curious, Michael struck up a conversation with the evening shift manager, a man named Troy. He pointed casually toward the back and asked, "What's her story?" Troy barely looked up. "Oh, that's She's not really staff. Just helps out sometimes." "Helps?" Michael repeated. "Yeah. Dishes mostly. Says she doesn't want to be paid. Just appreciates having a place to be." Michael said nothing. But the comment didn't sit right. No time card. No tax paperwork. No employee file. No wages. She didn't exist, at least not officially. That night, sleep never came for him. He lay awake in his motel bed, staring at the ceiling fan and thinking about the way she avoided everyone's gaze. The way she moved like she was trying not to disturb the air around her. The next morning he showed up early. Real early. Before sunrise. She was already there. Alone in the back, scrubbing baking trays that hadn't even been used yet. She worked in complete silence, her hands red from the hot water, her posture worn down like a machine forced to run long past its limits. Michael stayed out of sight, just watching. Later that day, while pretending to chat about supply issues, he asked one of the line cooks, "Does she ever take a day off?" The guy shrugged. "Doubt it. Don't think she can afford to." That evening, he returned to the manager's office and closed the door behind them. "Who brought her on?" he asked plainly. Troy hesitated. "Well, no one really." Michael arched an eyebrow. "You're saying she hired herself?" "She showed up one day about 6 months ago," Troy said, scratching the back of his neck. "Said she'd work for food." I needed help in the dish pit, so I said sure. Figured she'd disappear after a week or two, but she didn't. She's quiet. Doesn't cause problems. You've let her work here for half a year without pay? She never asked. She shouldn't have to. By the time the last guest had left that night and the kitchen lights began to dim, Michael found his way back to the dish area. Emily was still there. Same sleeves rolled up. Same damp hair stuck to her forehead. Same focused expression. You're still here, he said, his voice low but firm. She jumped slightly, startled. She hadn't seen him walk in. I'm almost done, she muttered. Just a few more pans. You don't get paid for this, do you? The pause. No. Then why stay? She wiped her hands slowly on the hem of her apron, her eyes fixed on the floor. Because there's nowhere else for me to go. The air around them grew heavy with silence. Steam curled around the edges of the sink, and the overhead light flickered once before going steady again. Michael stood there, taking in every detail. Her voice had cracked, not from fear, but something deeper, like someone who hadn't been heard in a very long time. And for the first time in years, Michael Graves felt something stir inside him, something more than corporate responsibility or bottom lines. He didn't know what her full story was yet, but he was going to find out, even if it broke every rule in his book. And just like that, the dam broke. Emily didn't cry. Her voice didn't shake. It had grown far too used to silence to waste energy on trembling. But piece by piece, like careful tiles in a mosaic, she started to speak. She told him how her mother died of ovarian cancer the year before. How she dropped out of culinary school at 21 to become a full-time caregiver. How the bills kept coming long after the condolences stopped. How, one day, she came back from the store with a loaf of bread to find the locks changed and her belongings in black trash bags on the porch. She spoke of the night she showed up at the restaurant's back entrance with exactly $2 in her pocket. This place, Mason's Bistro, was where she'd once done a high school internship. She didn't come asking for charity. She came to trade. Dishes for food. Labor for silence. Dignity for a place to exist without being seen too clearly. Emily never asked for pity. Never asked for help. All she needed was a sink, a bar of soap, and a corner of the world that didn't ask too many questions. Michael didn't interrupt. Not once. He didn't speak because he didn't know what to say. He stayed quiet because no words felt worthy enough to match what she had endured. When she finally turned away to pick up another stack of pans, he left the kitchen without a word, footsteps echoing softly behind him. What she didn't know was that Michael Graves had not just heard her story, he had absorbed it. Not with a camera. Not with a tape recorder. But with the sharpened memory of a man who had seen too many boardrooms and not enough real life. And with that memory, he started working. A week later, the quiet little restaurant at the edge of a strip mall became the epicenter of national media attention. It wasn't a scandal. It wasn't a celebrity endorsement. It was a press conference, unannounced, uninvited, and entirely unexpected. Reporters, locals, and curious passers-by gathered in front of Mason's Bistro on a brisk Monday morning in October. Camera crews jostled for space as Michael stepped up to the makeshift podium, clean-shaven, perfectly pressed in a slate-gray suit. But his voice, when it came, didn't sound rehearsed. It sounded like thunder. "This," he said, gesturing to the side, "is Emily Carter." The crowd turned as a young woman stepped forward awkwardly, wiping her hands on the sides of her borrowed coat. She looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. But she stood tall just the same. "For 6 months," Michael continued, "this woman has worked in one of my kitchens without a paycheck. Without a title. Without anyone really seeing her." Murmurs rolled through the crowd like a gust of wind. Confusion. Shame. "But I saw her," he said. "And I failed her. We all did." The hush that followed was electric. In a world where people like Emily fall through the cracks every single day, we need more than company policies. We need eyes that actually see, ears that actually listen, and hearts that actually move. Then he paused, turning slightly toward her. "Which is why today, we're changing that." He went on to announce a sweeping initiative across the entire Redwood Hospitality Group, which by then included 86 restaurants nationwide. Effective immediately, every employee would have access to an emergency housing fund, no questions asked. Every general manager would undergo mandatory crisis intervention training. And for young people like Emily, those with the drive but not the resources, Michael revealed a brand new scholarship. A full-ride culinary grant funded by the company, named in her honor. The Carter Culinary Fellowship. But that wasn't the headline. No, the moment that made national news came just after, when Michael looked back at her, really looked at her, and said, "Emily, as of today, you are no longer a dishwasher. You are our very first Carter Culinary Fellow." Her eyes didn't tear up. Her hands didn't shake. She simply nodded. But in that quiet nod was a storm of meaning. The room, no, the world, seemed to feel it. The weight of years unspoken. Of quiet suffering endured not for glory or recognition, but simply to survive. The invisible girl had become the face of something new. Not by begging. Not by screaming. But by enduring. In the weeks that followed, change began rippling through the industry like a stone tossed in still water. Restaurants across the country initiated audits of their back-of-house teams. Policies were rewritten. Expectations shifted. And above all, awareness grew. But the most beautiful change? Emily stayed. She didn't leave the kitchen, didn't cash out and disappear. She remained exactly where she had always been, by the sink, by the stove, among the steam and heat and clatter of plates. Only now, she stood a little taller. Her apron was crisp. Her chef coat was clean and embroidered with her name. And every time a new intern walked in, nervous and unsure, Emily was the first to greet them. Because she remembered. She remembered what it felt like to scrub pans until your fingers ached, to be surrounded by laughter but never part of it, to exist in the margins of a world that kept turning without noticing you were there. She made sure no one else felt that way. And if you're listening to this story, if it found its way to your ears today, it's because it doesn't end here. Somewhere out there, right now, someone like Emily is working without thanks, without notice, without a voice. Be the person who notices. Be the one who asks. Be the one who steps in. Even if it's not your job. Because kindness isn't a position. It's a decision. And sometimes, the smallest act of attention can rewrite the course of someone's entire life. Write in the comments what you would do if you were Michael. Like if you think people like Emily should be noticed. And be sure to subscribe. We tell real stories here that can change someone's life. Maybe even yours.